Good morning, everyone. Hope you're enjoying RSA week so far. My name is Bill Brenner. I am VP of Content Strategy here for Security Weekly and Cyber Risk Alliance, and it is my pleasure to be here this morning with Matt Mosely, Chief Product Officer and CISO at Pixum. Welcome.
Thanks, Bill.
So I'm excited to have this conversation because we just got done collaborating with Pixum on two ebooks. One, a buyer's guide for anti-phishing, and the other, a survival guide. And so all of this information that we've traded back and forth is still very fresh in my head. But let me start. So with phishing, the focus tends to be on what comes in by email and all of the social engineering tricks that are tied to that. And indeed, we just did a research report on the topic and found that for a lot of enterprises, that focus is still there. But your focus is on what I see as not the next big thing, but the thing that's here now, and people are making the adjustment, and that is phishing tactics that are coming by way of the browser. So talk to me a bit about how you've worked to differentiate from other anti-phishing technologies and to really focus on these newish challenges coming from the browser.
Sure, Bill. Happy to cover that. So, as you know, 91% of all data breaches start with phishing. So that's the initial vector most people get in, and it's because people are vulnerable. It's very easy to send a phishing email or a message through text or something else and get people to click on a link. And once you have access to their credentials, you can then get further into the network. What we found is that while this was historically mostly an email problem, and it's very easy to just reach out to lots of people and send them the same link and hope someone clicks on it. These attacks have become much more targeted. And as they've become much more targeted, they've also focused on other sources. So we see data breaches occurring through phish that originates in Slack, business collaboration apps. We see it through, obviously, text messages are a huge problem now. And if you know the individual you're going after, you can craft something very targeted, very specific that is coming in through an avenue that they trust. Typically we don't trust links in email quite so much, but people trust links through other applications they're used to using. And when they click that link and open it, it can still very easily, in the moment, fool somebody into thinking this is real, and all of a sudden you've given away the keys to the kingdom. And so what we've done at Pixum is develop a solution that lives in the browser, which is where people live and work most days. We spend most of our time in a web browser using SaaS applications. Yeah. And that's where these attacks are actually occurring. And so our technology actually stops these data breaches before they can occur as people open that link and click that link, and we analyze it in real time and stop the phish there.
So, I think of my own use everywhere where I would be targeted. So I'm on Slack. There's Discord. There's any number of programs that have a chat function for any number of websites that I visit on a daily basis. From your experience working with customers, where is the biggest vector right now in your mind? Is it phishing messages that are coming in from LinkedIn? Is it?
Yeah, so it depends obviously on your industry and what sort of work you do, but I'll tell you, overall it's text. It really is text right these days, and that's why we just launched Pixel Mobile last week, our new product, which covers text and other use cases on mobile. A lot of these text messages look very real, look like they're from someone who you would expect to get a text from, saying, for example, hey, your account is past due, click here and go and pay your bill. And you think, well, I better do that, right? That's important. You click it. It looks like your utility company, but it's actually not. And they're trying to steal your credentials. Or log into Salesforce and follow up on your case, right? And then they get your Salesforce password. Now they have access to all of your information on your customer database. So text is the biggest one, I think, but we do see a lot of Slack in the corporate environment. You mentioned Discord. We've seen a lot of Coinbase and things like that being attacked over Discord. And if you think about that, if you lose that money, you're never getting it back, right? So if someone's able to get into your your Bitcoin, steal your Bitcoin, you're in big trouble. And so, Discord is an avenue for more. It's more, not as corporate so much, but there's a lot of attacks happening on Discord as well.
And in the reports that we've just collaborated on, one of the themes is the idea of targeting the executives, the CEO.
That's right.
So talk to me a bit about that, some of the types of messages. That,
Well, you did mention LinkedIn. So we've had several years at RSA here where there's been a rash of people being attacked through LinkedIn-based phish at RSA. And usually it comes in either through text message more recently or historically through email saying, hey, this executive who you met at the conference wants to connect with you. Click here to accept. And we're used to the idea that if we open the application and do it ourselves, of course, our credentials are stored in the application. But if we click that out of email, it's going to ask us for username and password. So that's not unexpected. So people put in the username and password, and now their LinkedIn account's been taken. And that happens. That'll happen at Black Hat. It'll happen at any conference that occurs this year, security conference. But in terms of executives, yeah, it's very easy to find out enough information about somebody to reach out to them directly through whatever application you do it. And once you know who that person is, as we all know, privacy doesn't exist in this world, right? So, they can find enough about you to target you very personally. And then, I think part of the challenge here, too, is this is a very emotional thing, phishing in general, because we're all sort of taught, you're not supposed to click those links. You're not supposed to put in those creds. So people that do get taken advantage of ultimately feel to some extent like they're responsible for it, like it's their fault, and I think that's part of the stigma we have to erase as well. Yeah.
So we've talked about what Pixum does at the high level. Now take us deeper.
Sure.
Talk about how the how the plugin works. If you're a customer, what you're seeing, how this integrates into the daily user experience for them.
Yeah, so I talked about the idea of point of click, and when you think about, you open a link in a browser, that link renders on your screen, and then, you interact with that site. Well, prior to that happening, our plugin actually analyzes that content to say, does this look suspicious? And so we do that by actually sending up an image of the content to our cloud, of the login page effectively you're being asked for. So, our product actually operates on pixels on the screen. We're not looking at HTML. We're not looking at that level. We're looking at what's being rendered to the user, and is that something that looks like a real site but isn't? So from the user experience point of view, I click a link, I open it, and if it's malicious, I'll immediately have my browser pop up with a big red box that says, this isn't who it looks like. Here's why. It'll explain all the information. So there's a little training element there too, and then it'll prevent the user from ultimately entering their information and having it stolen. The hope there is by explaining, not just stopping it, but explaining why and what they're seeing, it helps them understand, what to look for the next time and help avoid it.
Yep. So let's talk about, helpful tips.
Sure.
And indeed, one of the reports we just collaborated on is a survival guide. So you've explained very well how what you do works, what the user experience is. Based on the types of phishing techniques that we've been talking about for the last few minutes, what are some of the best practices that you would share with beyond just the clients, to anyone watching this?
Yeah.
When you're looking at the nuances of the phishing techniques today.
I think inherently we tend to trust things that look like they come from people who we know, right? And we don't tend to give them a second look. And unfortunately, when you're talking about technology, you can't always trust what you see. So, really giving it that extra look and saying, does this look real? Does this something I would expect to receive from this person? If you're in a browser, just paying attention to the URL you're going to, making sure it's actually what you think it is. Those are basic things that can help, and just being aware generally. I think about it like, if you're traveling in a country where, maybe things like pickpockets are common, right? You pay a little bit more attention when you're out on the street to what's going on around you, and you're looking for scenarios where there could be risk. Same thing has to be true in cyber. You have to ultimately realize that it's a dangerous world out there, and there are people who would love to take advantage and steal information, money, whatever else they can get their hands on. And so, you have to have that ultimate posture. It's just say zero trust as a person, right? There's this zero trust concept in computing, but I have zero trust in my phone, and you have to look at it that way because that risk is always there.
Yeah, a funny little story. So I'm targeted regularly,
I'm sure,
as a lot of us are, with getting a text message. Hi, it's from the CEO.
Yep.
Sorry I missed you. I'm in a meeting, but I know that this individual would never contact me from there.
Right.
It would be from email. So but it just goes to show that even if it looks obvious, the bad guys are going to try it anyway because all they need is one person.
That's right.
Who is in a rush and looking at 10 different windows to click on it.
That's the old adage about information security is the good guys have to be right every time, the bad guys only have to be right once. You know, and so they can send out enough volume, someone will click on it. Someone will make the mistake.
So let me switch gears a little bit and talk about the experience of the week. So this is the first RSA back in 2 years.
Yeah.
My last business trip before this was RSA22.
So was mine.
Right as things were starting to get interesting. As you walk around the show floor and you look at all the booths and the different topics that are covered and where they all fit into the phishing equation, what are some of the thoughts, any takeaways or ahas that you've gathered so far?
I think there's been some pretty big stories this year about protection of the browser in general, as the browser being the new kind of horizon, of security, right? That's something that's sort of been out in the Wild West. We haven't really paid that much attention to it. But so many attacks do target the browser, and we've had some big announcements this year around that. So we're glad to hear that. We believe that protecting the browser is obviously critical. It's where Pixum lives, and we've obviously been aware of this problem for a while. So I'm glad to see that there's more people getting engaged in the idea of the browser being that last line of defense. Lots of mobile products, obviously, and that's becoming more and more important as people do most of their work on their mobile devices in many cases. And in terms of phishing in general, I think the idea that historically there's been this idea that threat intelligence is one of the ways to stop phishing, and I think people are starting to realize that threat intelligence is great if it's something you've seen before, but if it's the first time you've seen it, it's not going to help you.
That actually leads into the next question that I plan to ask, which is, without naming names, because I'm not into shaming, but are you seeing any approaches being promoted that you think is taking people down the wrong path?
Well, listen, I think there's a lot of great vendors here at the show, right? And we're not here to shame anybody for any of their messaging or story. I think a show like this that's this big, it's very hard to stand out and differentiate. When people are walking by, looking at the booths and seeing what you do, so you see a lot of the same language. You really got to understand what the products do and what you're looking at when you walk the show floor. But I think from a phishing point of view, the only way you're going to be able to stop phishing is by detecting targeted attacks that are going after people. The mass market stuff that's hitting millions of people, that's going to be on everybody's block list in 5 minutes. And so the reality is it's easy to stop because you've seen it before all over the place, and so there's plenty of products that will do that. But that's not what you have to worry about. What you have to worry about is the attack that's just targeting you. And there's far fewer products that will actually stop that kind of phishing attack because, it's harder. It's hard work. I mean, I know our CEO is going to talk with you guys later, get a bit more in depth about our technology and how it actually works. But it's not easy stuff, to stop these targeted attacks. And so I would just say, from a phishing point of view, again, I'm a big believer in defense in depth, right? So you need to have all of these layers. And so filtering out the easy stuff is important, but then you've got to stop the hard stuff. And that's a little bit harder to do.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Any parting thoughts?
No, it's been a great show for us. We've definitely enjoyed being back here at RSA for the first time, as you said, in several years, and I'm glad to see the industry is still thriving. And check out our website. We'd love to hear from anyone who has any would like to look at our products and go from there.
Great, been a pleasure.
Thanks, Bill. Enjoyed talking with you.